You know, when you run an item past a scanner at a co-op or at Whole Foods, you're voting for the world you want to live in. And believe me, corporate America spends billions to tally those votes. And that's why Kellogg, Nabisco, all these big companies are coming into organics, because they're tallying up the votes. And if you think any product that sits out there on a shelf is an accident, the size, color, shape, price, or anything else, content, if you think it's an accident, forget it. Companies spend billions of dollars to create products to test what you want. And so as we vote, as we choose the kind of world that you're inheriting, let me urge you, please think about, from the production side or the consumption side, think about the solution that organic offers. We've got to become 10, 15, 20% of the food that's out there. It is an enormous economic development opportunity for you and for all of us. And I'll leave you with this quote. If you don't believe me about your own power to make a difference as individuals here, I'll leave you with this quote, which is uttered by a friend of mine, the late creator of The Body Shop. She said, "Anyone who thinks they're too small to make a difference has never been in bed with a mosquito." And I think the bottom line here is that that's what we got to be.
Mosquito.
The world is in our hands. We can all be mosquitoes. We can buzz away and really change the way commerce is. The power is actually ours. This is our time right now, those of us who believe in, those of us who have hope. So thanks a lot for listening.
So I got a couple clothing. Before you guys go, I got a couple T-shirts. Or anybody want one? And we got some organic strawberries on the way out the door too.
There's yogurt out there. There's strawberries out there, and I'm happy to sit and sign books.
So you want to do some questions, things that are on your mind?
If it's stay, feel free.
Yeah.
Oh, they're asking for shirts up there. How's your arm?
It's pretty good. Here, you try one. Good. There you go.
What's an old guy from?
It's an old guy that's right there.
We have time for a couple?
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure what time it is. Could somebody give me any? Pardon? 6:11. Okay. We actually
Pass those around.
the idea was that we would finish at 6:30, and unfortunately for the students who are in my course, they have to actually stay after 6:30. So we have time for 20 minutes roughly of questions, and I will pull it. I'm very good at pulling things up when it's the time is done. So I think we can start with questions, and if we run out, then I'll pick on the students in my class. I'll leave it to you guys to pick who you want to.
Sure, that's fine.
Go ahead.
Well, I enjoy my Springfield yogurt yogurt every day. I miss shopping at Whole Foods. I used to live in Philadelphia. I'm real anxious to have Whole Foods come here to Iowa. But I think with the current economic situation and food prices in general going up, the fuel you put in your car, healthcare prices, affordability, housing, that kind of thing, I think price and cost is a barrier to entry for a lot of people in organics. And I'm curious how the economic situation right now is affecting you and your companies and the organic industry as a whole. And also, I think as maybe more people enter organics, the economies of scale might help lower prices by some of your perspectives on that.
Sure. Let me first start. It's the question, if you couldn't hear it, was how in a troubled economy, how is organics, which is at a premium to conventional food, how is it going to do? And why? How can that be a solution to people who on limited means? And we're all going to be on increasingly limited means in the economy that's ahead. First of all, let me underscore a couple things. I mentioned the organic sugar. It was a 100% premium 5 years ago. It's now the same as conventional. That, by the way, is true with cocoa. That's true with many of my fruits. It's true with vanilla. Now, it happens this particular month right now. Milk is highly volatile. We have many organic dairy farmers have gone back to conventional in the last couple of months because conventional milk prices skyrocketed and feed costs have gone crazy, and organic feed is even more dear. And so that has resulted in a cost surge for the limited amount of organic milk that's out there, because the primary driver is not the cost in the system. The primary driver is demand. Organic supply has not caught up with demand. Walter's and my problems here are not demand. I have a lot of clever tricks for getting consumers to buy my stuff and try my stuff, and thank you very, very much, by the way. But my problem is making sure the supply keeps up with it. And this gets back to my point earlier about us being 3.5% and just at the start. If we can get a 1 to 2% increase in the amount of milk that's out there or the amount of organic feed out there, we will see a rapid rationalizing of the cost side. I mean, that's how tight the supply-demand relationship is. But the other side of this is what's the cost of conventional and where's it going? And if you measure, I mean, right now, water in California or in North Texas is the cost of water is now one of the highest input costs for many of the farmers who are providing conventional product. And where's that going? It's only going up. Where's fossil fuel going? It's only going up. And so what is actually happening, I think, without waxing excessively philosophic, let me say something that I'm sure everybody here will agree with, which is we haven't been paying the real costs of food. The real cost is showing up in our obesity and we're consuming 300 more calories per capita today than we were in 1980. Empty calories because of poor nutrition and the conventional system. And what's happening is those costs are being pushed being pushed into our tax dollars, subsidies, or they're being pushed into our health care, which is skyrocketing, as Walter said. But, I understand that for a consumer going, shopping at the store, you don't see that. You don't think in those terms, gee, my tax bill's going up because of conventional subsidies or my water bill is going up or my health care costs. That is, in fact, what's happening. And so societally, I would just sort of summarize it this way. As we incrementally grow and by the way, research is a big part of this. As we get better and better data to help farmers become more and more efficient, we will find that the cost of the gap between organic and conventional will go down. But I would submit to you that I don't think we're ever going down to where conventional has been. I think the era of cheap food is over. And if you want to understand that really well, just go to Europe, where they're paying the real costs. They're unsubsidized costs of food and fuel. And by the way, where quality of life certainly is no worse.
Yeah, an interesting stat on that is that in America we pay about 9.5% of our income on food. In Europe it's about 14%. So there's a series of choices in there that people make about how important food is to their life and their health. But your question hits on something that really I've thought a lot about in terms of our work, because people do say about Whole Foods that, well, organic is elite, or it's, and I'll acknowledge here right now we probably only appeal to 15% of the American population at the present time. And one of my dreams is to take Whole Foods into the inner cities of America and other places, because what is Whole Food at the bottom? It's actually just real food. It's traditional food. There's no reason we can't complete that circle all the way. But listen, we've gotten to where we are now without any subsidies, without any help. There's no research. There's none of that stuff that's helped. And research has shown that consumers will pay more, for organic food, somewhere between 10 and 20%. But we've got to do more part of it is going to be conventional food being a little more expensive. The true cost of food being reflected in the cost of food. I mean, the research shows $20 billion in externalities that are not factored in the cost of conventional food. That is public health, water problems, things that are not factored in. So it's a combination of that coming up, people valuing food more, and scale coming to agriculture and organics that's going to allow us to bring the prices down. And it troubles me. I'd like to see organic food available to everybody. And we're just going to have to keep working at it step by step. But if organizations like Iowa State would put their shoulder to the wheel and do the research and help us to solve some of these problems, weed problems, pest problems, that the organic farmers face, that would sure go a long way towards bringing the cost down. And the average organic farm is somewhere around 100 acres or something like that versus the conventional farm. So there's just some scale things there that have to be addressed. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So the question for those who can't hear was about that institute that I ran. I actually became the executive director of it. The institute itself doesn't run anymore. It's called the New Alchemy Institute. It was a victim of Reagan budget cuts. But the data the findings are journaled there. If you Google New Alchemy Institute, you will be able to find some of those old journals. But much of that data has made its way onto some university programs at Penn State, at Cornell, at University of Vermont, where you can, basically, frankly, the research has progressed way beyond where we were back then in the early 80s. Sure. What else?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, yes.
I'm one of those folks who just got out of Dennis Avery's talk, and I promise you, you're nowhere near as depressing as he is. But I had a curiosity for you, and I wanted to know how you would react to this statement. He said that one of the biggest problems we have in American farming is that it won't mimic American business at large. You guys, as entrepreneurs, know that there is an enormous failure rate among small businesses. And he said the problem with small farms is that small farmers who are not efficient won't quit. And I want to know how you would respond to that and the effects of the loss of small farms on our society in Iowa and in the country.
Well, I'm laughing because, I mean, my milk comes from 900 family farms, and I'm going to have a hard time telling one of them that their problem is that they won't quit. I mean, this is a lifestyle choice. This is a decision. What is wrong with us that the farmer gets such a tiny percent of the food dollar that we make it impossible? I mean, what has happened here? You know, a farmer, I mean, my dairy farmers, if they have a bull calf, they get $5 if they're lucky for something that will fetch to the butcher, $175, and to the retailer, not knocking this particular one, but or the restaurant, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. What has happened that the farmer, the source of all of this, the keeper of our land, the preserver of our equity, the people who are closest to our inputs, is not considered? That's not their problem. That's a problem with how we've evolved with this idea that, let's make it as cheap as possible. What that is that's a problem of economics that says externalities, if they don't exist on your income statement or your balance sheet, they don't exist. Farm failures, farmer suicides, obesity, diabetes, climate change, hypoxias, those are externalities that no one's accountable for. And the problem is not really Walter's and my problem or Tom's. It's yours. Because this is what's going to dominate your lives in the rest of this century. And so I would just say quickly to you that I would say the problem is that we haven't brought an entrepreneurial solution that measures the real externalities out there, that internalizes the externalities. What I've been trying to do for 25 years is say, hey, is it possible for business to actually be part of the solution to these things? And what I'll tell you, and my book will tell you, is it's more profitable to do so. I'll tell you bluntly, I wouldn't be standing here if not for the investments in sustainability and my farmers. I would not have made it. I would not have made it because every time I surge in sales, believe me, Yoplait comes out there and offers discounts and deals and slotting fees and tries to wipe me out. But it's the fact that consumers are loyal, that she goes in not to buy yogurt but to buy Stonyfield. That keeps me going. Why is she loyal? Because she likes the product. She likes what we stand for. She likes what we're doing. She likes the fact that our farmers get a fair shake. I can show you a graph of the milk price paid to our organic farmers. It goes like this over 20 years. I can show you the map in the same period of what conventional farmers have gotten for milk. It's a roller coaster.
So we're losing 1,500, we're losing a tremendous amount of farmers every year. And one of the real questions is, who's going to farm? Who's going to be the next generation of farmers? I don't have the answer to that. But I do know that beating your head, being a small farmer and beating your head out on a price commodity item is probably a losing battle. But what I'm seeing is a resurgence of interest on the consumer's part on the farmer. Who is the farmer? How is the farmer doing what they're doing? And tremendous demand for value-added products, whether it's cheese making, bread making, particularly things that are coming directly from the farm. Some farmers are even getting entrepreneurial enough to they're hosting dinners on their farms, chef dinners on the farms with everything made on the farm, and they're selling out week after week. So where's the limit of the imagination? It's a matter of being creative and being entrepreneurial I don't think it's a function of size, unless you're just going to go right at trying to grow corn and you're growing 100 acres of corn versus that's probably a loser's game. It's a loser's game in retail too. Do you think I could compete with Walmart on price on every single item? Probably not. But I have a lot of stuff that Walmart doesn't have. And so it's a matter of thinking competitively and where's your advantage. And I think that there is a consumer resurgence of interest in who is growing their food and how that food is being grown and produced. A guy like Tim Beeler, the consumer wants to know who's doing it now. That never happened before. Maybe it happened before World War II, but in my career, it's the first time I've seen it. So I would argue there's an opening for farmers now like I've never seen before.
Just as a quick follow-up to that, I figured that we would get a response something like that, and I want to know, are you guys already in discussion with folks like Tim Beeler who are already currently facing skyrocketing feed costs, other input prices that are going up very quickly? Is that something that you guys have the will or ability to face in what you're paying the farmer?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a terrible week to be asking it. It's the worst it's ever been. And last week would have been the worst before that, and the week before that. We just approved. Our supplier is Organic Valley. I don't know if you all know them. They're a co-op of 900 dairy farms based in Wisconsin, but with I think 40% of their farmers are here in Iowa. And we just last week had to approve. We just approved our 8th price increase to the farmers in 5 years. And believe me, even with my buddy here, I can't pass along 8. I haven't passed along 8 cost increases to the consumer, because at some point it becomes absurd. I mean, I'll be selling her. What's your favorite flavor? Okay, I should have guessed that. It's our number 1 seller. Her strawberry yogurt could cost $1.25 if this keeps going. So we did a $1.25 a hundredweight last week increase. Which, by the way, is going to result in a $6 million hit to my P&L this year. That came after a $1 per hundredweight increase that we did in January, which, by the way, was about a $4 million hit to my P&L this year. And yet I can't pass along she's going to switch to some, horrible yogurt out there. I got to keep her loyalty. So the answer is, how we're addressing it is we're just mining the heck out of our P&L. We're just cutting everything we possibly could and throwing it overboard like sandbags off a balloon, Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you something. What has made it possible for me to get through this so far is the sustainable investments I've been making in our business. We built a waste treatment plant 2 years ago that instead of being an aerobic facility where the solution to pollution is dilution, where you take your biological waste, add water, oxygenate it, and send sludge to some mythological place called Away, that, by the way, doesn't exist. It's somewhere out there near Oz. Instead of that, we built an anaerobic facility which digests the waste, produces a useful biogas. Cost me 17% more to build it, something we should talk about, by the way. But it's going to yield $3.5 million in the first 10 years in net savings. And by the way, that was at $85 a barrel oil. Probably right now at 100. Well, this week is $98. I'll bet you it will yield $4 to $5 or even $6 million. Conservation improvements in my plant, tripling the walls of my cooler, extracting the heat from my wastewater, changing over the lighting. That's been how I'm funding the ability to pay farmers the correct price and keep them at parity with feed.
Look, it's the biggest thing that keeps me up at night is that, because I can't see the future in terms of these price increases right here, and I don't know what consumers are going to do when they come in the store and they start seeing. I mean, we're committed to paying Tim a fair price for his product, whatever it is, and we've been doing that for a long time. We're 28 years old as a company, and we will continue to endeavor to do that. And otherwise, you don't have a relationship, then you're just buying product. And I like to think of us having a relationship with Tim and our customers getting to know who's producing their pork. But it's the biggest thing I'm worried about right now. I just don't know how much more consumers can take and what is fundamentally going to crack here around all these things. Biofuels has had a part to play in that because it's pulling corn and soy out of the system for fuel and not for food. We also have the demand of China and India that's pulling on corn and soy. That goes directly into the cost of chickens and beef and dairy and milk and eggs and all that right down the line. And it's a real concern how this is all going to play out. So I think in the end you have to continue to be clear what you're trying to do in the marketplace. We're trying to bring a healthier food to the marketplace. That's our purpose, and doing it with good relationships with farmers. And so I guess we got to wrap up, but if you can indulge us just a minute more, we have a short clip for you. It's about a minute and a half. Just to kind of finish with that. That just is my closing comment here, and maybe you want to say something too.
Well, I simply want to say
Okay.
that your question is excellent, and they're dovetailed together. That we know that conventional systems are in failure. We're dependent on non-renewable resources. It's incredibly inflating. The only question is which is going to break first. Because those of us who are going to keep paying the fair price to farmers, at some point we are going to have to pass it to the consumer, and then at some point we'll break ourselves, okay? Because it'll just get too expensive. On the other hand, too expensive relative to what is the real question. Now, I have no doubt that conventional is on the rise, just as we're paying $4 a gallon for diesel right now. Logistics, which used to be like a single-digit percentage of my P&L, it's now a double-digit. It's changing the way we think about where we site, what we do, how we do. We're adapting to that, and conventional food's going to adapt as well. You want to go to this?
Well, yeah, just say again, there's never been a time that I've been a retailer for 32 years, started in a little dinky store, and now we have a lot of stores, but I've never seen a time where there's a more vital, a vibrant discussion about food and farming than right now. Every day there's something new coming up. People have a real interest in this, and it's a really exciting time for all of you to be doing, what you're doing and charting your own futures. And, Gary and I are old guys at this point, but you're all young, and on all of your shoulders represents this next set of choices about where this goes. I think sustainable and organic agriculture has a lot to offer you in terms of a vision for the future. And in the end, it all comes down to connection to the land, to realizing that we are not better than nature, but we function in a system with nature. We're partners, and that's what George Washington Carver meant, I think, with loving and communing. And finding some of that, and we're seeing that in business. In Whole Foods, we're not about just making money for our shareholders. We have a philosophy called the stakeholder philosophy, which Governor Vilsack mentioned, which essentially is that business wins by having all the stakeholder groups in the business also win. A win-win scenario. And that's a new model of capitalism that's emerging. It's a model called conscious capitalism. It's a compassionate capitalism. It's a capitalism that doesn't exist just to make money, but exists to better the world. And I'm going to suggest to you that agriculture can also evolve a new model, a stakeholder model of agriculture that's going to make that possible. And then it all comes back to the sort of connection to the land. That's something you all, I guess, have in your background is the connection to the land. You have that for being from Iowa. That's natural to you. But I wanted to show you this quick clip of this is a guy named Alan Chadwick. That's just speaking about, again, this idea of being part of a larger whole, being a partner, being a participant, but not being the dominator of it. And maybe that's helpful to you. I hope you enjoy this short clip. So I get your help on that. It'd be great. If you can be just real quiet, because there's a funny end here to this. Just a minute and a half, so if you guys could just.
We used to be a
second.
nation of farmers, but now
That's the wrong
it's
one,
less
though.
than two.
Side also
If
sells.
you go back to the big screen there. No, not that one either. That's a good one, though. That's the late movie.
And here is where
There
nature
you go.
speaks.
Turn louder.
Here is where the whole law of the plants and the birds speak and fulfill and sing their song and the fulfillment of this perception. And it's extremely simple. It's actually, the whole answer is right in front of our nose. And we're all pretending to look over the horizon to see the answer. It isn't. It's in front of our nose. It's on the very ground in front of us, the very soil that we've already desecrated, that we have got to restore, and restore bit by bit, individual by individual, and bring back the beauty and the quality, and the beauty and the quality before the quantity, and then behave ourselves from then on.
There's no more sound there. Turn the sound up. All right, well, you get the idea. That was the bees buzzing for you there. So thanks very much for coming, everybody. Appreciate it. grab a. We're
There's yogurt and strawberries out the back. Just feel free to grab some. Students from 566, 366, I'm afraid you have to stay for a little while. And potentially there's somebody here from curriculum and teaching. If you could, identify yourself. Hey, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. Oh, no, it wasn't at all.